I have given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. You don't really think you'll win, do you? I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 111 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you do take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read your review on the air. Batman on Film is now on Patreon as well. If you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcast or vlogs or the website itself, and you want to help support us if you're so inclined, please head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm for all the details. And I am the host of today's podcast, Ryan Haas.
Hey.
And yeah, hot off the heels of our Justice League commentary podcast is another podcast we decided to record immediately after. So in some ways, you could call it BOF After Dark. And whenever I do a BOF After Dark podcast, I have to do it with my buddy Justin. So what's up, Justin?
Hey, everybody. How you guys doing? You're listening to Batman on Film After Dark, and just like when Batman comes out. No, okay. So yeah, we just got really inspired by watching Batman with other characters that we decided, you know what? Rick Shoe is full of crap, dude. So this episode is officially called The Shoes on the Wrong Foot, Pal. And what we're doing is we're responding to Rick Shoe's opinion article on Batman on Film that he wrote on March 13th, 2018. And it's going to be a friendly rebuttal because here's the thing. Batman on Film is all about Batman, all iterations. And so there's not just one viewpoint. There is many viewpoints. And
yes. Yeah. BOF is also about good discourse and good discussion.
Yeah, good discourse.
And this article is a pretty good launching point for the discussion we're about to have. So
yeah, and some friendly below the belts as well. And so with us to continue the conversation is our good friend Pete Verra. How you doing, dude?
Hey guys, I'm back.
Hey, he is back, dude.
It's like you never left.
Yeah.
It's like you never left. As well as our other good pal, Eric Holzmann. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm ready. I'm pumped.
He's thinking
Go.
Deep breath.
yeah, I mean, it literally is after dark for you guys. You guys are really after dark. It's almost Batman on Film.
It's almost the dawn of
The dawn.
Yeah.
Almost the
It's
dawn of
almost
justice.
breakfast. It's 2:13 Eastern time. Right?
BOF
my
After
God.
Dawn.
There you go.
Yeah, we're gonna go
So,
to the
okay.
diner. We're gonna go to the diner after this.
Yes. Disco fries.
Yep, disco
Yeah.
fries.
So what we want to do is provide an alternative view on the Batman Without Gods op-ed that Rick Shoe wrote. And then him and Bill actually did a vlog kind of talking about it. And they're both pretty much on the same side of the fence where they would prefer to have Batman on film be by himself, for him not to be mixing it up with any other characters. In a nutshell, they basically feel that when Batman is surrounded by other characters, namely gods, Superman's, Wonder Woman's, characters like that, it weakens who Batman is as a character, and it makes him feel as if he's kind of just standing around and doesn't really have a thing to do. I don't know. Am I right in saying that? Does that sound about like I'm encapsulating what their thoughts were?
It makes Batman less special.
Right.
It makes
is-
Batman
is-
less special.
Right.
Is what it's kind of what their angle is. And so Rick even says that, let Matt Reeves' Batman be its own thing, and if Warner Brothers wants to have a Batman included into any Justice League movies or things like that, they should go ahead and do that and have two concurrent Batmans and things like that. So also saying it's silly and unrealistic to have Batman even be a part of these films, even going as far to say that the fight scene in BVS is unrealistic because Superman should have just taken care of all of it. But I digress. So let's jump into it and let's just kind of share our thoughts. Whether you want to, commentate directly on what Rick said, or if you have your own take on the situation. I want to hand it off to Eric first, because when Rick wrote this article, Eric actually was pretty vocal on Facebook about how much he disagreed, and even received a very impassioned phone call from the shoe himself.
Yes.
So
which he actually referenced in the reply. The first reply you see, it's him calling me. So it was kind of, I'm like, oh, I touched a nerve. I clearly touched a nerve.
It definitely went into damage control. So
yeah, the biggest problem I have with that line of thinking is we've seen this all before. Like, we've seen Batman solo for most of his films that he's been in. Yes, he was with Robin in Batman Forever, and Batman and Robin we all like to forget about anyway because that was just a terrible movie. So that doesn't count for me. So when I heard that DC was going in this direction and that they were going to have Batman with Superman and then do Justice League, I was excited because I grew up on Super Friends, the cartoon Super Friends, and that was my first cartoon that I remember watching as a kid. So when I heard this, they were going,
Was that good though?
What do you mean? Was it good? I thought it was at the time.
Is it?
yeah, at the time.
But okay. Keep going, please.
Yeah.
So,
Hey Ryan, don't get shit.
Oh no. I just got a question.
Go ahead. Well, no, looking back now as an adult, I could say how the show was kind of cheesy, but you got to think that,
That was awful.
right? But you have to think of the time it was out. So,
who it's catering to.
right.
Well, I mean, it's part of the question of it. Just because we're nostalgic for it, does that mean that it automatically gets a pass? Like it worked, but we're nostalgic for it. We have nostalgia for it, but it might not have been great in the day. So, but why does that automatically mean? I want to see it, so we have to make it work. Like,
I think what Eric is saying is it was, as a kid, it was nice to see that.
Right. It was nice to see Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and even though they were kind of ridiculous, the Wonder Twins and those characters all together on screen. It was something that I enjoyed watching. And then, again, it's right. It is nostalgic for me because it's one of the first memories I have of the character. You're right. It was a little cheesy for the time, but in a way, Batman worked in that world, right? That the world they were doing, he was part of that universe and he worked and he was an integral part in the way that he would be now in this version as well, in my opinion, which would be using his money and his technology and his detective skills and as his ability as a tactician to kind of plot out how they should, how the Justice League should go forward and what they should do. And that is a part of the character's history. So my opinion is I haven't seen this before. Why can't we see it now? What's the problem with seeing it on screen? Yes, I even gave Rick a shout in the reply that in BVS, he did look kind of crazy fighting Doomsday. It was ridiculous. There was no reason for him to be there outside of the fact that obviously the movie has his name in it, so he has to be there. But he technically, there was no reason for him to be there. So he looked ridiculous there. But in Justice League, it wasn't as bad. Like he had a purpose, bringing the team together and then setting up for what they were doing. Resurrecting Superman, even though Justin doesn't like the way they did it. But yeah, like this was all his idea and his push, and that was his role in the film. I don't think he looked as ridiculous in it. And I think that going forward, there's more there to build on. I think if we kept up with this world and this universe, we could continue to grow with him in this role. Now, Rick's other thing, well, he just doesn't look as cool. Like it doesn't make Batman as cool to be in that role. And I guess, I mean, I see that point. He does kind of look silly fighting parademons, and as we saw in Justice League. But I mean, where else are you going to go that we haven't seen before?
I can hear Rick telling you right now.
But see, sir, you've just validated my point.
So, what's your rebuttal to that?
What, by saying that?
Yeah, because you just validated all of Rick's concerns by saying Batman looks silly fighting a parademon. Like, what is your rebuttal to that? Because
he has a role in this world. Like he has the role that he has in this world is it's kind of like Tony Stark's role in the Marvel universe. He's the rich guy, he's the smart guy, he's the tactical guy, and that's his role here. And I think that would work going forward. So I want to see more of that. I want to see him using his technology. I want to see him using more gadgets and maybe the Batwing and even though the Nightcrawler thing probably wasn't the best, but still we got to see that side of it where he was able to level the playing field in that regard.
Yeah, no, I agree. Here's what I would say as we get into this conversation. I understand the critiques of Batman in the Justice League movie. It's not if you want to have an argument about why Batman works with other characters, the Justice League movie isn't your strongest argument. But what we are arguing for, though, is to have a cinematic version of Batman standing amongst these characters. I think it can work. I think it can work because it's been shown in other media. So right off the bat, this is where our buddies Rick and Bill will say, well, other medias aren't like film and whatnot. Okay, I'll take that. I understand that. But other characters, how come Batman's the only character who doesn't work in these mediums across the board? Because I feel like Batman on film has been very vocal in saying Batman's the most malleable of characters. He can work in any situation. He can work as a robot in space. He can work as a vampire. He can work in hanging out with Scooby-Doo. He can work, and I know these are animations and these are comic books, but I think about Grant Morrison's run on Justice League. It was JLA. That had to be the most cinematic of all, iterations of the Justice League. I think it's still one of the best runs in its history of publication. I think the approach to it was to be very widescreen. I think that's kind of what he was saying. It was widescreen superheroics, and and Morrison, who, I think his Batman run was a little heady, but his JLA run was really great at putting all these different characters. And, he kind of labeled them all gods. They all had this seat at the round table. You had King Arthur, and you had, Superman, and not King Arthur, but like Aquaman. They all had this archetype, and Batman is the mortal. He is there. But what these characters do is they make Batman even more special. I think it's the opposite to Rick. What Rick is saying is they make Batman less special. And I think, no, I disagree. They actually make Batman stand out as more special. It really isolates who he is as a character amongst these gods. Here is the mortal guy who can actually solve the problem. Yeah. Stand with them. Yes. But actually be the one who solves the problem at hand. And that's exactly what he didn't do in BVS and what he didn't do in Justice League. He should have been like, here's how we stop Steppenwolf. And they're like, oh, dang. And he should have had the plan on how to do it instead of standing around like, oh, I don't know. And then grinning when Superman shows up. He should have had a battle plan. And when Superman showed up, he should have told them what the heck to do. All right, now that you're here, good. Let's smile. Let's get our pleasantries. Now let's handle this. Like, he should have been jumping in that leadership role from the get-go. Even in BVS, when he's running around from Doomsday, like, there should have been... He
should have got the spear. Yeah.
Yeah, Batman has...
Oh, he had the grenade.
Exactly. Yeah, well, he had that grenade. He was like, oh, crap. Well, Alfred gives him some crap about, like, well, maybe he shouldn't use it, So Batman should always be handling the problem. So whether it's comics, whether it's cartoons, whether it's film, that's who Batman is. And for me, the argument ends there. It's have a good writer, have someone who knows the story they're writing. Does it make Batman less special if you write it that way? Yeah. I mean, why isn't Superman less special? Why is Wonder Woman not less special? Why is Aquaman not less special in these films? Why is it just Batman? And I know that we're Batman fans, like, foremost, but let's put everybody on the same platform. Is Aquaman less special in this movie because he's standing around next to Wonder Woman and Superman and Flash? No,
right. He has a role.
He still has his, he has a role. I would actually say Batman probably had, and we said this at the end of our commentary, Batman was the shortchanged character, but it wasn't because he's Batman. It was because they shortchanged him in this story. They didn't give the character.
He's a joke.
There you go.
I think it's a larger thing. I think all the characters get shortchanged. I mean, the more characters you put together in a team up film, it takes less. It takes more away from the whole. Aquaman has something to do, but I want to see Aquaman solo movie. I want to see Superman solo movie. I want to see Wonder Woman's. I don't want to see them together. And I think that's kind of a larger question.
That's where I stand. I don't necessarily want to see them in each other's movies. I want to go to an Aquaman movie and just watch an Aquaman movie. But if they do interact post credits outside of the story, I'm fine with that. But at the same time, I don't need it to be, like I said earlier with Spider-Man Homecoming, while that film's successful, there's still too much Iron Man in that movie for me because I'm going to go see a Spider-Man movie. And you could say the same thing about like Civil War. That's like half an Avengers movie. It's supposed to be a Captain America movie. Like I go there for the main character. If you want to build up to an event post credits wise and have a director with a vision come in and say, I have an idea for a team up movie, that's fine. Don't cram them in their other movies and hinder the plot of that film.
And I think that's where everyone's at. Like I want to, we'll section this part of the conversation, winks and nods, because that is something that gets brought up a lot. Like, fans want winks and nods. I don't know where that sentiment has come from personally, because I don't want that. Like what you're saying, Pete, like I don't want Batman to show up in Aquaman. I don't want Wonder Woman to show up in Batman. I don't want any of that to happen. The only thing that makes sense to me, and this is just a rumor, it's not even a thing that's happened or will happen, we don't know. Superman showing up in Shazam makes sense to me. I can see how it could work. I go, okay, of all characters that could make a cameo and show up, I feel like, okay, Superman doesn't feel awkward to me. Like if it was Aquaman, I'd be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why is he in there? So, but other than that, these characters can definitely have their standalone film. And then if they need to do a team up later, make it happen. But no one's calling for that. I think that's a misguided observation based on some internet behavior, but overall, I don't think anyone's calling for that.
So here's kind of a question I just kind of wanted to get back to is the question of, Batman's malleability, right? I mean, in a lot of these BOF shows, I'm always a strong advocate of, Batman's malleability as a character, both within different kinds of comics and between forms of media, whether it's video games or movies or, anything. Lego Batman movie. It works. Mm-hmm. Why?
It's the best Batman movie of the last 10 years.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I mean, but the question is why? Just because he's Batman? Well, I mean, there's a larger answer. There's more that goes into it than just that. Just because Batman's cool or whatever. I mean, Joey Perotti has another good article on BOF right now about the question of Batman's malleability. What's it called? It's called The Case for Batman's Malleability. I mean, he says that, you need to have Batman's origin needs to be consistent and his no-kill rule needs to be present. And I can kind of agree with both of those, although they don't come to play in a lot of Batman media.
I feel like they do. I feel like he's killed way too much in movies.
Yeah, both. Yeah, you see the origin a lot in movies, and you see him maybe killing people a lot in the movies too.
Every director of a Batman character, wherever he's in a movie, they've always give their version of his origin. They've all done it.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the kind of thing. I actually talked to Rick about this, about his article too the other day, and something that kind of strikes me too is like something that what I feel is like a core element of the character that I feel like gets missed when Batman gets put into other situations with, people like Superman or Wonder Woman, the God type characters. Like I would say this is personal, like a personal trait of Batman I like, but I also feel like it's something that makes that has made Batman work throughout the years, is that in all these forms of media is that Batman is like, he's supposed to be the weird one. He's supposed to be the gargoyle, the dark, figure. He's the one that scares the crap out of villains, like what's a villain going to be more scared of, Batman or the guy that can shoot laser beams out of his eyes, and so when you put them next to each other, one of the core facets of why Bruce Wayne started to be Batman kind of starts to break down and gets lost a little bit. And I feel like you take Batman out of Gotham, Batman, and you take Batman out of all of those things that just make him Batman. I feel like that's a big part of that. And I think that you lose a lot of that when you get him in Justice League. And when you have that compared to, and you add in things like him not being a very good tactician in like Justice League, the movie, for example, then as a Batman fan, you're losing almost too much of why you want to see Batman on film in the first place. And I feel like the team up stuff like this, I don't want to see that sidelining the solo films themselves. Like we've spent years at this point watching, Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Justice League, watching a Batman that's being ripped away from a lot of the things that make him Batman to me.
A lot of that I think has to do with, though, that we didn't get the beginning of this Batman. We got him already when he's been fighting for 20 years. So we didn't know this particular character like we've known the other ones who've been on film.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the one we got in Justice League, all we know is that he's been fighting for 20 years. He's older, and he was kind of beaten up about it in BVS. And then because of what happened to Superman, he has this kind of renewed hope that, you know, because of Superman's death and his sacrifice, he has this renewed hope in humanity and what he wants to do. And so I think that's a huge part of it, with the reason why it didn't work so much in Justice League per se, was that we didn't really have a connection to him or to any of the characters, which has been a huge complaint about the DCEU from the beginning.
Yeah. But is it because of they don't work on screen together, or is it because, again, it's how it was put together?
I think it's how it's put together. Because if you look at a movie like X-Men, Bryan Singer's first movie, like that introduces a whole team, and that's considered one of the the highlights of the comic book movie genre.
Yeah. Yep. X2 is still high on the list. Yeah.
Yeah. And Justice League, we're like, we're 3 movies in, with these characters, Man of Steel, BVS, Wonder Woman, and now Justice League, and you've seen them in these movies. So therefore you are familiar. Yeah. It's just execution. They just made bad movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say they're bad, but I think they're just, they're missing the mark. They're missing the core. Yeah. Of who these characters are. And, I think that's what it really comes down to. You're not getting the familiarity that you wanted. I definitely, people will say, oh, well, they go back to Christopher Reeve, and then there's that whole argument that they didn't show up for Man of Steel when we did something different. So I think it's just kind of hitting the core of who the characters are, and they really did miss it out the gate. I think Wonder Woman's the only one that really like connected with people. I don't want to keep going back to BVS and Justice League as examples of why it can't work, because those movies don't work on a different level. Not because it's Batman with superheroes. It's because it's not hitting who it is. It's an unfamiliar version of who Batman is. It's like, we just came off the Nolan films that everyone really connected to. Is it because Batman was alone, or is it because it was a really good rendition of who he is? And I think that's what it is.
Story. That story.
But that's a complete story. Like, you have a beginning, middle, and end with the Nolan series. You had his origin, what he was, and then what he came back to do. You had that arc. You didn't get that you don't have that with Affleck's Batman at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I also think you're walking into the baggage of Affleck too as an actor. There's still people that are like, oh, Affleck, he's a terrible actor, and it's like, well, they haven't seen any of his other things post, like Pearl Harbor or Geely. They're just like, well, last I heard, he was a bad actor, so now he's Batman, and so they don't. That's an average moviegoer thought. So I think.
Well, it should have been. Last I heard, he won an Oscar for
Argo.
Exactly. Well, no. In the conversations I had with people, I was like, "Well, have you seen The Town?" Oh, no, I didn't see that. I'm like, okay, well, you need to.
I really thought we were going to get some of that with his Batman. That's kind of what sold me on.
We all did.
Yeah, that would have been great.
Opening bank robbery scene. You're just like, oh god, you could do this. You could do street level crime.
Hey guys, this is Ryan. I thought I'd interrupt this delightful discussion for just a moment so I can plug something really cool that's coming up soon. The Robin Everyone Loves the Drake podcast is doing a special podcast/audio drama hybrid of the Detective Comics arc, A Lonely Place of Living. I would bore you with the details, but I actually have a promo spot for it that will do a much better job of pitching it than me just sitting here talking about it. So, here it is.
Coming soon from Robin Everyone Loves the Drake, a Batman Universe podcast network production. It's the radio drama you've demanded. Well, it's the one Rob produced and made into a 4-part weekly radio drama. From the pages of Detective Comics comes A Lonely Place of Living. Where in the world is Tim Drake? Red Robin faces a crucial decision: escape the most devious prison ever devised, or find himself abandoned beyond time and space for all eternity. Not really a choice, right? But when he finds out just who is locked in there with him, Tim's world will change in ways he never imagined. In the biggest undertaking Robin Everyone Loves the Drake has ever attempted, ELTD Theater is in full swing, with over 20 voice actors from a variety of popular podcasts lending their talents to make the comics come alive. Featuring Justin Kowalski as Batman.
And all the time he's been out there, lost and trapped, knowing that at the end of the day his mentor was one of the world's greatest detectives on the planet. He knew I was coming. I wasn't! And I can't stop until I bring him home.
Andrew Leland as Alfred.
Master Bruce, you need to sleep even just a few hours. I'm getting ready to pull out one of Dr. Crane's more narcotic gases from the laboratory if you continue like this.
Andy Gianova as Nightwing.
Robin? You want me to go back to being Robin? I can't. Just as I can't go back to being 13 again. But you're right. Batman needs me. Maybe instead of arguing with him, I should try and help him.
Olivia Mullins as Batwoman.
Unconscious the next roof over. We could turn him over to Argus. I know they'll want someone to answer for his crimes.
Stella Bowman as Spoiler.
Hey, Dad. How's your night going? Still dead? Yeah, thought so.
The irredeemable Shag as Brother Eye.
Brother Eye is now online.
Michael Bailey as Mr. Oz.
Your mentor. He recently learned that you were alive, that you were trapped. But search as he might, he cannot find you. He hasn't slept in 5 nights, save for moments that he nods off in the chair. It consumes him.
Rob Myers as Red Robin.
I thought I would impress him. The way that I pieced it all together, and God, I wanted to impress him. I'd only met him once, just as a boy. I was terrified of the circus, but he calmed me down, and he told me that he would be performing just for me.
And many, many more. The first episode hits the first Wednesday in May, so prepare your ears for the story that changes everything for Tim Drake.
Hold on tight, Tim. As tight as you can to every moment, because this will all be over sooner than you can imagine.
I am super excited about this thing coming out, not just because it's more podcast and more Batman talk, but this thing has all these fellow podcasters doing voices. And I'll let you in on a little secret too. You already heard Justin in there, but I also contribute my voice. So does Rick Shue, and yes, so does Bill. It's going to be awesome. Now, back to the show.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but I think part of Rick's question though is if execution is part of this, since they have tried, for these last 2 films, is it time just to kind of give it a rest for a while and then build the characters back up again? Yes. I think that's kind of part of it too.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. The next time I see Batman on film, I don't want it to be Justice League 2 or anywhere else,
Or Suicide Squad,
except for unless it's like Flashpoint and we get the Thomas Wayne Batman. I'll make the exception for that.
I don't even want that just yet. Let's get Batman right before we start making Thomas Wayne Batman. Let's get Bruce Wayne figured out here.
Yeah.
Before we start getting on.
Yeah. Because then it's like comics where they start to rely on gimmicks instead of the characters. And I just want the characters right.
Yeah.
But the gimmick, it's funny because these gimmicks aren't going to work because people just don't resonate with this version of the character. So therefore it's not connecting with anyone.
Yeah. I agree with that. I totally agree with let's get Batman right on film. Let's give people a Batman that they can get behind and B, one that has a familiarity of what's the public consciousness of who Batman is, no baggage, just a straightforward, a great Batman story.
Right.
Whether that includes his supporting cast, that's a whole other show. I think people need to fall in love with Batman.
I just don't want to wait as long as I did between Batman and Robin and Begins.
Yeah.
Shorten that time frame. That was too long.
Yeah. I don't think Warner Brothers wants to wait that long either. I think he's still their cash cow.
Conversely, though, I thought it was too fast after the Dark Knight Rises to what we got in BVS. There wasn't there wasn't a lot of time there to get rid of Bale's Batman and say, okay, I forgot about him. We have this new one now. I think that hurt the story as well, because I remember when BVS was announced, people were like, "Oh, Bale's coming back to do Batman."
Yeah. That was a big rumor.
No.
Well, there were people who thought Begins was a prequel to 89.
Right.
The general audience doesn't pay attention to stuff like we do.
I thought the Joker killed his parents.
It's how'd they bring the Joker back if Nicholson died? And it's no, it's a different thing. Just go see it.
Right.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's say, Batman's on the shelf for at least, I don't think we're going to see him before 2020.
I don't either.
Right. So Batman comes back in, let's say he comes back in 21 and Matt Reeves is working on the films and, does the next iteration of Batman, does he exist in the world with the DC Films universe? Is he still around?
Yes.
Is Gal Gadot gonna come in contact with Matt Reeves' Batman?
No.
Not in the movie.
What do you
I
mean?
would say not in the movie.
Not in the, okay, yes. I was gonna say, I say they come in contact sometime, but not in his movie is what I mean. So sorry. Let me rephrase that.
Yeah.
Do they know of each other?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you're keeping this universe and this continuity, of course they know each other.
Okay. Yeah. Well, okay, because that's something that's been suggested by like Bill and Rick is, well, just do a soft reboot, keep Wonder Woman in her, different time frames. She can do 80s and 70s and whatever. Just keep making those movies while, like let Matt Reeves do a Batman movie that exists in a different timeline, so on and so forth. What do you guys think about that?
Well, Justin, I've talked to you about this separately. Yeah. That it's you have to recast the parts then. Like it doesn't work because, and again, we might be okay with it because we love the characters. We'll go see it anyway. But I have had friends say, I've told them after Justice League came out, I'm like, I don't know what's going on because it didn't do well. So I don't know what the future holds for the characters or this universe. And they're like, well, wait a minute. Everything we just saw is going to be thrown out. And then if they,
well, you know what, that right there though, that's what people that read comics say too. And it never matters. They throw everything out. They reboot everything. Everything always changes. Are movies that different now?
I think so.
We've had like how many Spider-Mans? Like it keeps getting rebooted. Like if the movies are good, does it really matter? Like if they did if tomorrow they were like, okay, we're going to do Justice League Mortal and it's going to be its own thing. And now Justice League itself is its own separate film franchise, and everybody gets solo movies, and Justice League is its own solo thing. Does that work, or did they still have to keep doing this? Like,
but that's what they're doing with the
cinematic universe,
Joker and Suicide Squad too. Like, we're getting two different Jokers.
Yeah, and
so if that's already happening, and
that does a disservice. So let's say they make this Joker movie, and whoever plays Joker, and it's say it's Joaquin Phoenix, and oh man, he kills it, and people love it. Then what happens to Jared Leto's Joker? Like, that's kind of a crap situation to be in. As him, he's like, so great. So now I'm playing a role someone else is playing in a different movie, and people are connecting more with that version. What happens to my role? That's just
they don't use him. That's what happens.
What's that?
They just don't use him.
Yeah, but then say Matt Reeves does his Batman movies and Joker is in this movie. What do? Is it a whole other? Do they just recast Joker?
Is it a third Joker?
Yeah.
Is it a third Joker?
Then it becomes then it becomes Rebirth. Like there's 3 Jokers running around,
which they haven't explained yet.
Yeah. So it can be very confusing. So one of the things that was said before is they just need to get rid of Cavill. He's toxic, all that, whatever. Again, we have Gal Gadot that people love. Wonder Woman made a whole bunch of cash, successful movie.
Yeah. So
we bring
Warner Brothers' most successful movies ever?
Yeah. So we recast Superman. Does Superman know Wonder Woman? Like we can do that. We can move forward and do like Justice League 2. Let's say Justice League 2 happens, and let's just go out on a limb and say Affleck's not in it, right?
Right.
Cavill's in it. Let's just say it's Jake Gyllenhaal as Batman. Did he experience BVS? Did he experience Justice League? Did he experience, Man of Steel, all these things? Yes, right? I mean, that's the timeline that they're in, unless
maybe they just leave Batman out of it completely.
Maybe. I mean, and maybe that's an option that maybe they can do that, but
you can do that because remember, like towards the end of Justice League, he kind of was just kind of silly there, not doing much, shooting his gun. I wouldn't be opposed to, let's take Batman out of Justice League 2. Why don't we introduce a Green Lantern or
and
something?
Batman's done that in the comics. Yeah, Batman's done that in the comics. Like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. You all got it. Like,
he almost works better as the outsider of the team. Like, in case if 911, call me.
Do you really think that Warner's would do that, or DC would do that? They're not keeping him out.
No. Yeah, he's part of the Big Seven, and that's the thing.
He's their biggest property.
You don't do Justice League, and it's never successful. Every time you do it in the comic books without the core characters, guess what they do? They end the title and they reboot. They restart it and go, we all need to get back together again because no one wants to read Vibe and Gypsy and John Jones and Aquaman. No one wants to read that book. They want all of the core characters together. that's the one question people are asking now. Where's Green Lantern? Like, why isn't he a part of this?
Yes.
So
that was
you need the all-stars, and that's what people want to see. But they didn't show up to see this version. Why? Was it because their first iteration of this? Yeah, it was because they didn't feel connected to the version that was given to them, and that's it. And I think that's the problem. Write a good story that can connect to people, and they will show up. Like, you look at a movie like Black Panther that just freaking made $1 billion. Like 2 years ago, nobody knew who Black Panther was besides comic book fans, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like now
and now it's as successful as the Avengers. Like, that's nuts.
It's as successful.
There's
as
a lot of
Avengers.
other
$1 billion.
There's a lot of other factors that are going into that, though. I don't want to get into them, but
well, no, it's a culture. It's a cultural thing too. I totally.
And he was introduced in Civil War, so people did get to see him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Aquaman was introduced in BVS.
Exactly. That's where I was going to go. I was like, Aquaman.
So was the Flash. But here's the thing: like,
not the way that Black Panther was.
Featured,
but we haven't gotten those. We haven't gotten those follow-up films yet, right? So we haven't got Aquaman. We haven't seen Flash, so we don't know.
I was going to say Wonder Woman's a better example.
Yeah.
Like, but she didn't hit $1 billion, did she?
No. But I also here's the thing, like, I think that's BVS. BVS is a movie not a lot of people liked. Justice League is the sequel to a movie that not a lot of people liked. So therefore, like, I didn't like this. Why am I going to see it? I also think BVS was a little toxic on Wonder Woman because they're like, well, this character was in a movie I didn't really like, so, and it's pulled directly from that. And the opening of that movie is pulled directly from that. And so is the closing of that movie. So the connective tissue does hold something because it was a little toxic.
That movie,
a lot of people that saw Wonder Woman didn't watch BVS though either. I don't think it was
I think that's part of.
But that movie did better as it went along too. Wonder Woman actually, the opening wasn't,
and it had a cultural impact. Not as strong, but it did have a cultural impact.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100% agree with that. So I'm just trying to throw it out there. I did say a couple weeks back that I think we live in a post-Batman world. Batman's no longer the only superhero out there. Where it used to be, he was a Batman movie was special, and it's not anymore. I don't think, because we've gotten
Black Panther's the special.
Exactly,
it was Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man.
Right, that's exactly it.
We've got like 9 movies of Batman, and Superman and Spider-Man,
anything Wolverine was in to an extent for a while. Anything that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was in, people want to see.
Those first 2 X-Men movies were
good. Yeah. And so, but now,
well, here, and that comes back to the same question though. Like, is Batman now less special on film because he's just in every movie?
I think
so. With everybody.
I think
it could be more that, like, that's a good point. I think it could be more that's the reason why maybe this isn't working.
There's so much content. There's so much superhero content, from Netflix shows to CW shows to shows on ABC. You've got 2 different branches of movies. Every once in a while, you get a Sin City movie. You get you've gotten Phantom movies. You've gotten Jonah Hex movies. Even that movie Red, that's a comic book movie. Atomic Blonde came from a comic book. There are so many comic book movies and just content in general. You've overflooded the market.
But I don't think it's an overflooding of the market. I mean, if it's good, if it's quality,
it's just
good.
The good stuff.
I mean,
exactly, Justin. Yeah.
Black Panther came out in February. That movie did $1 billion. We got Avengers coming out in another month.
Right.
That movie is going to make $1 billion. Like, if that movie doesn't make $1 billion, like, what are you guys thinking? Like it's not because there's a glut of content. Like we were talking earlier today, Pete, you're like, oh, you're not watching Flash anymore. I'm just over it. I don't think it's good anymore, but I am watching Black Lightning because I enjoy that show, and I'm watching Jessica Jones on Netflix because it's got some quality to it. But if it's not good, I'm not going to watch it. And that goes for Batman properties too. I'm not watching Gotham, and I love Batman. Batman's my favorite character, but I don't watch Gotham.
Sadly, I'm watching Gotham, and that's part of my thing too. Is like,
but you like pain.
Well, I watch Gotham, but I also dislike Gotham a great deal. I feel like I do feel like I do it because I like the character and I like to know what is happening across the board, and across the board over the past few years, I do feel like there's been a handful of higher tier content, Batman related, that has damaged the brand slowly over the years. Things like Gotham, it's just not good. Batman versus Harley Quinn, that's one of the worst Batman things I've ever seen. I feel like,
but how many people watched that? How many people watched Batman?
I know more people than read comics. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like TV shows and comics. And then we have the movies on top of that, right? So I feel like some of that higher tier content it is just kind of really lacking lately, and I think it kind of hurts over time.
Counter that though with the Arkham games; those are still some of the best video games.
Telltale, don't forget Telltale.
Ever.
Telltale's great.
Yeah,
Injustice,
their games are great.
Good.
Yeah. So there's a different medium where people are connecting to Batman. Like that's kind of a unanimous. Like Batman Arkham games are great. Injustice.
Oh yeah,
those games are great. So Batman isn't completely spoiled in all mediums, but he is oversaturated everywhere. I don't want this conversation to go into is Batman oversaturated. Going back to the main point
as we record our second BOF podcast.
Really. But is just kind of, I guess, to wrap it up here, to kind of get, can he work on screen with other characters? Let's kind of lightning around it. Ryan, concise thought. Does Batman work? Can he work on screen with other characters?
Can he? Yes. Can he right now? No.
Why can't he right now?
Because they need to get back to they need to focus on their characters individually before they can put them together again. That's my thing.
I agree. Okay. Pete.
I agree with Ryan. He can work with other characters, yes. But you need to build him back up from the basics. Let people actually like Batman again before we want to see Batman team up with somebody else. And that includes a Robin. You know, like it doesn't even have to be like Green Arrow or Blue Beetle, like
because Robin is so tricky by himself anyway.
Like let's get the Batman world figured out, you know, before we start doing even a Nightwing movie, which seems to be kind of what is going on right now. Everything's on hiatus until the Matt Reeves movie comes out. But let's figure out the characters at their core before we start going crazy and just spreading them everywhere.
All right, Eric.
Yeah, Pete kind of stole my thunder about it. I think he can, like they say, I think he can work, and obviously in a world with other characters, if you keep his role as what it should be, and maybe not have him out there, you know, in the supernatural stuff. Just keep him in the role that he could be, and maybe that makes him more interesting too. Like we haven't seen that role yet, so maybe that'll make him more interesting, and people will see a different side of Batman that they can connect with that we haven't seen yet, or that we don't have now. So, yeah, I think he can, but it's gonna have to. I think we gotta rebuild some of the faith in the character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we need a complete reboot. I'm not a fan of that right now. I'm like, man, I don't want to reboot Batman again. I just want to jump into Gotham City and have a good Batman film.
Yeah.
Let Batman earn that his crown back, because I think we live in a post Batman world, but it doesn't mean Batman can't bounce back. He's bounced back from worse.
He always does.
He always does. You know what I'm saying? Man, he's been Omega sanctioned. He's come back. You know, Batman can always come back.
He's done the Batusi.
Yeah, he's done the Batusi. Again,
he's had nipples on the suit.
He's had nipples. He's had no nipples.
Right.
He's been in blue. He's been in gray. I want Batman to come back and be the best. And I think that's what everybody wants.
Right.
But I do think he can exist with his buddies on screen again. I don't want it to be the next time I see him on screen. I don't want it to be with other characters. I want it to be by himself. Yeah. I want him to be, you know, solving some crimes. But I do want him to exist with the people he's currently rubbing shoulders with. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want Wonder Woman to know who he is. I want Aquaman to know who he is. I mean, those characters are tethered to him.
That's
like,
well, as far as
they have,
right. As far as we know right now, that's where we're at. So there's nothing has really changed in that vein, because
exactly.
You know, we still have Wonder Woman 2 coming out. We still have Aquaman coming out, and it's, again, no matter how you feel, it's the same people playing them.
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to automatically say, okay, well, Batman is in this world, Superman is in this world,
and there you go. And I think that's exactly where we're at. Like, I think sometimes we worry, well, what if they do this and what are they going to do that? Like, I think the best thing to do, it's kind of like just don't acknowledge it and move forward and make good movies. I think that's where
everyone wants.
Yeah. Nobody wants goofy stuff. We want our characters to be done right. That's where we're at.
Amen.
So, all right. So, I mean, again, not as fiery and, actually not too far off from what, Rick wrote in his article. I think the only place where we differ is we don't really want Matt Reeves to do something separate. We're not really into a reboot that completely like scraps everything that's come before. We just want to move forward, move onward, make good Batman films. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
But, I mean, Affleck, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever. That's another topic. But.
Affleck, you know what? Here's the thing. Right now, if Affleck decided to stay, okay. But I don't think he is.
If he wants to do it, then have your heart in it and do it. Don't just do it because you have to do it. Yeah. If you want to do it, because especially for people like us who love the character, we want him to be played well. So if you're gonna
don't do it for a paycheck, do it because you want to do it.
Right, do it because it's exactly.
Yeah. Like we all like paid, but come on, don't mail it in on me.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want Pete in the negotiations. Hey man, here's the thing. If you're gonna do this, man, just do it.
Hey, Ben, let me talk to you real quick, okay?
It's a paycheck, I'm gonna call my guy Paulie Walnuts, man. He's gonna come over here. He's gonna like rough you up, and he's gonna tell you, "Hey,
Ben, if I have to send Anthony over, okay, he's gonna bring the wrench. You want the wrench out there? I don't think you want the wrench. Let's just end this right now. Then we'll head over to Imagineros. We'll get some Meatball Heroes, and we'll call it a day. Is that all right with you?
Oh my gosh,
that sounds awesome. I want a Meatball Hero.
I want a Meatball Hero too right now. I'm like, man, I'm
getting hungry.
Yeah, well, it is.
Thanks,
breakfast.
I mean, I got a lox bagel waiting for me at the deli.
I can make some avocado toast.
I mean, that's good. I should put avocado on my lox bagel.
There you go.
Where are we going?
All right. Well, there we go.
Get in a food conversation.
At least it's not the weather.
I was just going to say, at least it's not the weather. Hey, that's Bill's thing. I'm not going to take Bill's shtick. He likes to talk about the weather. And he likes to say Ricky Joe Shoe.
We could talk about brunch. What is brunch anyway?
What is brunch?
Wait online for like 40 minutes to an hour, and then it's lunch.
Oh man! All right, we're gonna end the show right now. Thank you guys for listening. Ryan, how can people find you?
You can follow me, Ryan Haas, over on Twitter at SMB_Ryan. And I'm also part of the Tim Drake Robin podcast. Everyone loves the Drake. If you don't, you're not part of everyone. You can find it on Twitter at ELTD podcast.
Oh man. All right, Pete.
You can follow me on Twitter at Pete Illustrated, or you can follow me on Instagram at Peter_Illustrated. And we can share
underscore.
Yeah, there's no character limit on Instagram.
All right, Eric.
You can find me on Twitter at Finale33, or you can find me on my shows page at The Man Up Show.
my shows.
My shows.
I just want to watch my programs, Mildred.
Oh man. All right. You can find me on Twitter at J_Rocka. And you can also just check out letsgocast.com if you want to check out some other shows that I am a part of. That would be super awesome if you do that. So all right. For Ryan and Pete and Eric, this is Batman on Film. Authoritative, definitive.
The dadgum original.
Announcer Rachel will take us out.
You didn't say you were Justin, but okay.
That doesn't matter. I get it.
Hey now. You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.